Let's go there, because I've been waiting for my little rant about how last night was handled. And this isn't a criticism of the 49ers as much as it is an indictment of the NFL's injury reporting system. And in an age of legalized gambling, where you can bet to win straight up, money line, you can bet with the spread, you can do over-unders, and you can do that whole universe of prop bets, Christian McCaffrey, over-under 78.5 rushing yards, .5 touchdowns, all those different little permutations where they'll take your money. They'll take your money on anything you want to bet on because the house is going to win over time. They know that. That's why it's so popular. The house is going to win. Give us your money. If they were going to lose, they wouldn't even be in the business. They're in the business because they win and they make money. That's how it works. So the way that this is allowed to happen, Christian McCaffrey's got the calf injury that we knew about. And then this is where my spidey sense should have taken over. On Thursday of last week, when we're scurrying around to get ready for the Chiefs-Ravens game while also dodging lightning bolts at Arrowhead Stadium, when it comes out that McCaffrey has calf and Achilles, that was the first red flag. Calf and Achilles. Well, Achilles, it's the same general area. Achilles can be a little more of a problem, as we learned last year on the opening Monday night of the season. So he's limited on Thursday. He's limited on Friday. He's limited on Saturday because for the Monday night game, you get the final injury report on Saturday, and they apply the questionable label. Hell, everybody's questionable. How rare is it that someone's doubtful? And when they're doubtful, they might as well be out. They should have at least put doubtful on McCaffrey. Because after the game last night, Lisa Salters gets Jordan Mason and says, when'd you find out you were starting? He said Friday night, something like that. Oops. What? Whoa, wait a minute. Friday? Wait a minute. We start another day of injury. We still haven't put the label on Christian McCaffrey. So he's told on Friday, get ready, you're starting. And that's what he said. That's what he said. Kyle Shanahan said, I never told him that. Okay, I don't care. That's what he said. I don't expect, when the cat is out of the bag, I don't expect the 49ers to acknowledge it. That is what he said on national TV. I was told Friday or Friday night I was starting. And on Saturday, they put questionable on McCaffrey. Devin, here's why it's a problem. In 2018, when the Supreme Court opened the floodgates for state-by-state legalized gambling, the NFL had two choices. One, we continue to hate gambling. We continue to oppose gambling. We don't want our teams to be involved in any way, shape, or form. We encourage our fans to stay away from it. The house always wins. We shun it. No matter how many states it's legal in, we shun it. Or we can make a little money off of this. We can have all these partnerships. And the one thing, Devin, that they won't talk about, how many owners exercise their prerogative to own up to 5% of a company that has a sportsbook operation. We know RKK's had a piece of DraftKings for a long time. We know that. It's been publicly reported. Jerry Jones, piece of DraftKings. How many owners have a piece of these companies that are the house? So the problem is, if you're going to be that embedded with gambling, you can't have a system that has a bunch of people, whether you're in a for-money fantasy football league and you had the first overall pick and you took Christian McCaffrey, you got prop bets on Christian McCaffrey, you can't have that turd land in the punch bowl an hour before kickoff. It can't happen that way when the team knew 3 days before that guy wasn't playing.
You would know better than me. Can you be punished for how a guy shows up on the injury report? Like if they find out, let's say Christian McCaffrey on Friday and Saturday, all he did was go through warmups, and that's why he was limited. Does that have to be reported as doubtful, or are you always okay as long as you put some kind of designation that he might be out?
Well, I think in a lot of these cases, Devin, they could, if they really wanted, to unleash the hounds. The way that some teams, I'm not going to mention any specific teams that might play at Gillette Stadium, but some teams, if they
Have
ever
40
run
guys questionable.
Slightly, well, but my point is they come after you guys for certain things that we've, talked about in past years where they activate the full weight of the NFL investigative process on certain teams like the Patriots. But for the most part, I think they don't like to investigate. They don't like to go down rabbit holes because they don't want to have to let the world see, yeah, we got some stuff going on that, pun intended, is questionable. So I think they could. I don't think they will. I asked the league. After Jordan Mason said what he said, and again, Kyle Shanahan said, well, I never told him that. Well, Hey, Kyle, somebody did. And then when Jordan Mason had his press availability, he's like, that's why I don't like talking to the media. Yeah. Oh, I might accidentally say something I shouldn't say that just so happens to be the truth. And I credit him for telling the truth. Why would we doubt him when he accidentally told the truth when he probably shouldn't have said Friday? So I think the league could, but I don't think they will, because they don't want it to become a thing. They don't want us to be talking about it. They don't want more people to be talking about it. I was surprised last night in the postgame coverage they weren't making a bigger deal about this. But, hey, I mean, I'm not trying to be critical here. We've got DraftKings relationship, but we're not the house like ESPN is. Everywhere you look, it's ESPN Bet. They're the house too. So there's a point where they're going to stop. They're not going to shine too much of a light on what happened. But that's the first when because the whole time I'm thinking they knew McCaffrey wasn't playing. They kept it under wraps. They knew he wasn't playing. They got Jordan Mason ready, and the Jets had no idea until the rest of us did. And that's a real strategic advantage. But the whole time I'm thinking they knew. They knew. And when that came out of Jordan Mason's mouth, it's like, yeah, they knew, and they kept it quiet. And it's all fair in the confines of trying to win the game. But because of all these tentacles and connections to gambling, that's where I think a greater obligation arises to let the rest of the world know what's going on.
And that's where I always, like, whenever I used to see these things, I would read one of your articles or something like that. I'm like, who cares? Because being a player, I'm thinking about, hey, there's always a guy going through something, and we get the backup ready, and the backup's ready to go. And maybe the Friday or Saturday practice, the backup gets more of the first team reps because now it seems like Christian McCaffrey can't go, so Mason's getting more reps. To me, that's normal. Now on the other side, I'm sitting there waiting for my daughter last night to finish cheer practice, and me and my oldest son were sitting out there watching the third graders tackle football practice, and the guy next to me gets on the phone. He was like, Christian McCaffrey's inactive. I was like, Christian McCaffrey isn't inactive. They would have, like, I would have saw that come up, but he was doubtful or something. And I go on my phone, he's inactive. And then a guy in my fantasy league, he's playing against somebody who has Christian McCaffrey. He drops a player and he picks up Mason just to sit him on the bench to make sure that he can't get him. And like, as soon as that happens, it transpires so fast. My other friend got in a group chat and said, man, I took a nap. I come back and Christian McCaffrey's inactive. And I see the impact of that. And I'm still the guy who, as a former player, I'm like, it's all about the game, but you have to understand the business and the element of that, of how much money is lost by so many different people when it comes to these things. So I think it is important to just pay attention to them and see how it works out. And I agree with you. I don't think the league digs too deep into this, because I think what happened in San Francisco is a very normal thing. A guy's questionable. We're just doing our job as a team to make sure somebody's ready. We might have told him on Friday, we might have told him on Thursday, but it doesn't mean that we didn't hope Christian McCaffrey came back and would be able to start, or maybe we thought he would start and Christian McCaffrey would still play. Like, all of those things come up in meetings or discussed. So I do think the way that the 49ers did it, if I was a coach, I would have handled it the same way, but I understand how that impacts so many other things.
First of all, who cares is a very common reaction to most of the stuff we write, which is still better than don't waste your time reading that crap, which Aaron Rodgers said 8 years ago. But it's the system that allows it. That's what my concern is. The NFL has created and maintained a system that allows that kind of gamemanship. It rewards it. That's why the Patriots would have 40 guys questionable. I remember some of those injury reports. Like, everybody's questionable. All those years before you were in New England, Tom Brady, right shoulder, probable, back when probable was one of the designations, because they saw him walking around in the locker room with ice on his shoulder after throwing 40 passes in a game. Hey, what's wrong with his shoulder? Why isn't he on the injury report? It's like, screw it. Let's just put him on every single week then. If that's what you want, we'll put him on every single week as probable with a right shoulder. So, yeah, from the perspective of all the different people out there who are affected by this, because of the fact that the NFL went straight into bed with gambling. If they had said, we want nothing to do with it. None of our owners can hold a piece of a sportsbook company. We will take no gambling money. We are going to completely and totally distance ourselves from it. That's different. But when you make it one of your major revenue streams and you let the owners own up to 5% of the house, that's where it becomes a problem. And, hey, Devin, here's one of the reasons why I always point this out. We're just one scandal away from Congress going up everyone's ass with a microscope. pardon the expression, to find out what happened and who did this and who did that. And maybe we need an agency that has oversight of the NFL, and nobody wants that.
So,
they got to take care of their backyard, or somebody else is going to take care of it for them. And I keep waiting because I know it's coming. There's going to be some major, like Tim Donaghy style thing that calls into question the integrity of everything. And that's why when something like this happens, we can't just ignore it. We got to say, hey, we got to clean this up. Because I'm sure there were a lot of people last night who, like, if you had Christian McCaffrey and all your other players have played, who are you going to drop to get Jordan Mason? You going to drop Christian McCaffrey to get Jordan Mason? I don't think so.
Yeah, it's so true. And I agree with you. I think that is the biggest thing. It's an issue. Let the minds that come together and find a way to correct this, to make it right, and explain it to everyone. I bet you if they bring all the owners in and they say, this is why it's important, that will come down to the head coaches and to the team right away. Because, again, those players, all those people, they don't see the 5% in DraftKings. They don't see that revenue share. They're like, yes, it comes back overall under the bigger pot, but the owners who are in there, like, that is their investments. That's the things that they're into, that they get to do. So again, I think most of the time, all of this stuff starts at the top. You go in there, start at the top. It will always trickle down to everybody else, because when the bottom line gets impacted, you're going to make sure your employees, because at the end of the day, that's all everybody else is, and all of those facilities, they're employees to the owners of these teams. They will make sure they're all on the right path. They will make sure they do it right, because if not, they get fined, or the issue comes to the owner and to the organization, not to the coach or to the player.
Hey, Devin, I may need to get a little refresher on the rules here, but I'm 99.9% sure players can't buy any shares in DraftKings or FanDuel's parent company, Flutter. You can't hold stock. You can't have ownership equity. You can't, you see LeBron James doing NFL betting commercials because the players can't. You're at the Super Bowl, the 49ers and the Chiefs. You can't stop. You have to, walk like I did from the wrong spot to the right spot the other night when you're in a casino. Get right through there. You can't stop. Don't pause. So all the rules that apply to the players. And, the owners can own up to 5%. And I asked the league last year, well, can we get a list of which owners own which? Oh, no comment. Yeah, they don't want us talking about it because they don't want people to realize there's a problem here. Because the obligation, and this is the last thing I'm going to say about it, the obligation for the league to get their shit together on this is enhanced when owners are allowed to be the house. That's the fundamental problem. And if they're not going to tell us which owners own a piece of the house, that makes it all seem even more shady, frankly. Somebody's going to get a phone call today, and it's probably going to be me. Shady, and there's something about it that doesn't sit well. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.